Que lo que, mi gente? Welcome to the Monoplaza F1 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Emi Bertre. And this week, we have an extremely illustrious guest, Tasha James. She is co-host of the Quick Stop F1 podcast. Tasha, thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm extremely excited to be here with you, to be really honest. I'm good. I'm great. I don't know. I had not a bad week. I had a long week last week. This week I'm feeling more energetic, more fun, more happy. So I'm really excited to talk with
Nice.
you.
That's good. Hey, I think it already has that positivity rubs off on me.
Mm.
So, Tasha, we have a lot to get through.
Mm.
Hungarian Grand Prix, Sir
Yes.
Lewis Hamilton's 200th podium. That's the only thing that matters about. No,
Incredible.
I'm joking. No, I'm serious.
I mean, we could talk about that for the next hour, though.
Basically.
Yeah.
So let me start by this. What was your overall impression of this race?
Oh man, this race this race was like Looney Tunes to me, honestly. It just felt like anything that could go wrong kind of went wrong for certain people, and that was comical for me,
Yes.
for in a lot of ways. And yeah, for me, it was one of those races that it's like interesting, but nothing really happened. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
nothing
Yes.
dramatic, just a lot of little hijinks
Yes.
ensued. So yeah, I would rank this as just like a very like entertaining race from a unserious standpoint.
I'm right there with you. I will admit, I was delusional going into
Were
the
you?
race. Yes, because still riding the high of Silverstone and still
Mm-hmm.
seeing Lewis Hamilton get
Yeah.
104, can't see me. Like I was insufferable. I watched
Right.
that race and saw I was like coming into Hungary. He got pole last year in a super slow car. The car's
Mm-hmm.
looking up. I believed in everything that Toto was saying. So basically, I was high on my own supply. So I came in and I thought
Right.
he's gonna get 105, and then he's gonna
Me
get
too.
105, and then in Spa he's gonna get 106, and then the chance. So like
Right.
I came, I came into it, and then like qualifying happened, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah. This is the
Yeah,
true
just
pace.
those
I will say
expectations.
the highlight
Mm-hmm.
of qualifying for me was seeing the head to head between him and George even out.
Oh,
Meaning George was out in Q1 and I didn't care about qualifying
right.
after that, if I'm being completely honest. But like you, and I think we're going to talk about it later, the race was definitely more entertaining than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Specifically because of the radio. So like I'm sure like you've seen the memes, but for me, whenever all
Mm-hmm.
the driver of the day memes and it was just like team radios,
Yeah.
that's what really made the race for me. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
low key super entertaining for me. And in the end,
absolutely.
Lewis got that 200th podium, and Oscar P got his first win, albeit real weird. We could talk about that later
Hey,
too.
yeah.
But I ride with Oscar, Lando.
Me too.
Right. So let me start from the beginning. And so for those who don't know, Tasha actually co-hosts, let me say that, co-hosts a show with Quickstop where she does Saturday qualifying analysis, which is really
Mm-hmm.
great. So now it's fun for me because I actually get
You.
to ask you this question. So let's touch a
Yeah.
bit on qualifying. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Red Bull has been needing Checo to step up for
Right.
I don't know how many weeks now. He's been out qualified.
Seasons.
Okay, yes, for seasons. He's been out
Mm.
qualified by the likes of the mighty American Eagle Logan Sargent.
Rah! USA, USA.
Hey, yo, hey, I'm not gonna hold
Rah.
y'all. Why are you like this?
One thing about me is I'm going to be like absolutely unhinged at all times.
No, hey, first of
So
all,
yeah.
I just want everybody to know Logan Sargent's biggest fan is my guest on the show tonight. Probably the
Mm,
the funniest part.
that's news to me.
Listen, the funniest part about me is the unbridled patriotism. All right, American to
Right, right.
American. Anyway, so Checo gets out qualified. Not only that, he he bends the car, he wrecks the car, demolishes it, sends it back
Yeah.
to Guadalajara, whatever. And so now, obviously, it's been a couple days since the race happened. Let me get your thoughts.
Hmm.
First of all, classic Checo choke job. Second question,
Yeah.
how much longer is Christian Horner going to have patience with him? First of all, I don't even know why he still has a job. Second, or
Well,
third,
listen.
how much longer before Dr. Death says, okay, Checo, like you're gone. So yeah, let's do that. How do you feel that crash, and were you expecting it to happen? How do you feel that crash impacts?
Okay, so like I mentioned at the top of the show, last week was kind of a busy week. So I didn't get to watch any of the free practices. So I came into quali pretty much blind as to
Mm,
like where everybody was. And when Checo crashed, it was like it felt surreal because it's almost like this isn't happening again. Like there's no way. They just Marco was just on TV saying that yeah, we're giving him until Spa,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like to answer your question, like they got eyes on him. They're only giving him a real short period of time to turn things around. But honestly, I don't even think that's really the case. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
much a done deal. But yeah, so see him crash was just like to me, I'm just like, okay, you're done. Because like jokes aside, I do think mentally, like
Mm-hmm.
psychologically, like he's just super in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's a very talented
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
driver, but these these results that we're seeing now are the culmination of the past like almost 2 seasons really, like where he's just been on a downward trajectory. I mean, Max is winning what
Yep.
85 something percent race of the
Yep.
races, and so I feel like that kind of wears at him, you know, to some degree. The team is pretty much, you know, completely uh made to be custom made for Max Verstappen. So,
Agree.
you
Yep.
know, he's that redheaded stepchild of the team. So on just on that, and then of course you have Helmut Marko, who's like completely a racist
hundred
asshole
percent.
who has
Yep.
said very terrible things publicly about him. So um to, you know, that degree, I do understand how we got here. I do understand that mentally because I do feel like it's weighing on him. But I do need him to fight back. Like I do need you to fucking fight back at some point because your job's on the line and we're all watching you about to be fired. And I can't believe how little of a fight that he's putting up to actually keep his seat.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I I'll respond to that. Yes, 100%. He's in his head. No
Right.
disagreement there. I think I call it kind of like the Miami curse, and I have no hard
Mm.
data to back this up. But if you look at last year, leading up to Miami last year, Checo was
Mm-hmm.
fairly solid, had a couple wins under his belt. People
Yep.
were gaslighting us into thinking it was going to be at a bare minimum competitive between him and Max,
Max and
right?
Checo. Yeah.
This year,
Mm-hmm.
he was finishing on podiums. He's doing Miami happen, and it's all been
Yeah.
downhill from there. Now, the other thing that obviously, you know, in American sports, we talk about free agent year or a contract year, so to speak. So I mentioned this like
Mm-hmm.
several episodes ago, and I felt like at the time Checo was performing like a dude who's on a contract year, meaning like I'm gonna give it my all, 110%.
Right.
I'm in the Sims, like you can't see me. I live, eat, breathe F1 contract. He was like mission accomplished. I'm out
Right.
now. The question for me, so I also agree with you when you say, you know, Helmut Marko obviously has been openly talking about replacing him. I guess my question back,
Yeah.
and you've heard a bunch of people talk about it, is okay, Checo most likely at a bare minimum won't be back next year, at least if things keep going the
Mm.
way they're going. My question is, who do
Right.
they replace him with?
I've been racking my brain about this a lot because it's like in my head it should be
Fair.
Yuki Tsunoda. He's the one putting in the most consistent performances. He's beat three of the
Yep.
different people that have been in that second seat. So like he really is like if we were living in a fair society, it would be
La
Yuki
Yuquita,
promoted to
yeah,
that
for
seat.
sure.
Um but I do feel like Danny Ricciardo is probably going to be the front runner for that. I mean, honestly, everything has been set up for him to be there. You know, bringing him in, kicking Nick DeVries out. You know, looking the other way when he's putting in
100%.
shitty performances week
Yes.
after week. Like, um, but the occasional time that he does okay, it's like he's back. The honey badger's back. So it's like this is a setup. This is a
Yeah,
fraudulent election trying to to get Daniel Ricciardo to that
stuff
second
account.
Red Bull seat. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be him. I know Liam Lawson's
Mm-hmm.
name has been thrown around too, but I don't. I feel like I don't want that for him, to be honest. I don't want them to throw him into that seat at Red Bull. I do think he needs a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of time
Mm-hmm.
at the
Mm-hmm.
Visa team, because I just think that, unlike the cycle at Red Bull to put these less experienced drivers in that second seat, it just chews them up and spits them out. So I think Liam's a better driver than that, and he deserves a little bit of time to develop before they really put his feet to the fire. So yeah, I think Danny's the front runner, and
I'm
yeah,
I'll be so distressed and disappointed if that's actually what's going to happen. But I think you're right. And the only reason I say that is because I
yeah,
think that Daniel Ricciardo is Christian Horner's most favorite son, because there's
that's
so
his
many,
baby.
like
Yeah.
Christian was sad when Danny left to go to Renault, right?
Mhm.
Then like when he crashes out at
Mhm.
McLaren, he's like, "Come back home. We gotta, yeah, let me
Let me
coddle
feed you.
you,
I'm
you
gonna
big
nurture
man
you. Yeah.
baby. We're gonna put you on the PR tour, and since Nick DeVries sucks, we're gonna bring you
Mhm.
in because surely you can be better than Nick DeVries." And honestly, he was better than Nick DeVries. Now, was he better than his teammate?
Yeah.
Was he better? Absolutely not. Now, for me, I,
Yeah.
I agree. So I don't think Liam should take that second seat because they do kind of spit him out, or like chew him up, spit him out.
Yeah.
I actually don't want Yuki to go either, though. So I feel like,
Me
yeah,
either.
you got to put some respect on Yuki's name. I know you do. I
Right.
do. But I actually want Yuki at Aston Martin, like right
Yeah.
when Honda ends up going from Red Bull and Red Bull becomes built for tough and they suck, uh
Right.
and Honda goes right. I want Yuki to go there,
Right.
and it's for selfish reasons, the most selfish reasons. I'm hoping Honda goes to Aston, they put some soft pressure on Alonso,
Yeah.
Alonso retires, Yuki goes in. Like I got prayer
Yeah.
candles for that to happen, for Alonso to finally just like hang it up, because he's almost there, like he's almost there. But
You can hear it on the radios. He's over it.
A
He's
hundred, a
done.
hundred percent. So yeah, so it's a bit of a conundrum, and I think like you though. So going back to like that qualifying, I having no confidence or seeing somebody's confidence like
Mhm.
literally be shredded like week in and week out,
Yeah.
and every time he does it, they put Checo's been out qualified by Logan Sargent, by Alex Albon, by blah 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 blah, and I was like,
Kevin
damn,
Magnussen, like Nico Hulkenberg. Yeah,
why you
he's
gotta
done.
do him like that, Evio Soto? And so like for me, it is a little bit demoralizing. And then I remember, you know what? Let me not talk about that. That's outside of racing and Checo's extracurricular. So let me just leave that as the world turn stuff out of this. So it is a little bit sad to see it. It
That's
was
my
surreal
favorite
too, though.
part.
Like I think you saying that kind of puts it into
Yeah.
perspective for me. Like you can't crash, Checo. Like we need you to at bare minimum get into Q3. The car is capable of doing that, bare minimum.
Like, what's going on
And then to see
at the
him
bare
crash
minimum?
out
Yeah.
at a track that's not a new track, a track that he's been racing his entire career.
Right.
They
He's
haven't
been
done any
there.
upgrades to it, no new gravel, no funky, like, hey, we're going to add a
Yeah.
chicane here for shits and giggles. None of that. And so, like, it's a little bit surreal, but I think I'm going to end that by saying that I I think that it's a lot of yapping at Red Bull. I don't feel like they have somebody
Mm-hmm.
who is comparable to him in spite of all his flaws. But when I say
Right.
comparable, I'm not talking about just skill, but I'm also talking about like money, because he brings in so much money,
Right.
right? And so,
He
but
does.
anyways, and so
Yeah.
Checo is out Q1. That's a wrap. Max is
Mm-hmm.
left fighting basically teams, right? He's got two McLarens he's got to fend, and then
Right.
Ferrari sandwich type of deal coming after him, and then Lewis
Mm-hmm.
and whatever. The next thing is during qualifying. I also want to talk about what the hell happened with Mercedes and George Russell.
Yeah. I think a lot of people mention this, but it's that Mercedes feels like they are stuck in the past. They're
Mm-hmm.
living in the past, like where they had a fast car and they could send them out as late as possible, and Lewis would
Yeah.
still get a pole, or
Yep.
be put on the front row. And you would think this is what the third season in a row now where we've
Bunny's
had a
car.
very
Yep.
shaky car, right? Like it looked better at certain tracks, but now it becomes more apparent than ever that it's very much dependent track to track to track. Also, temperature. The hotter it gets, the worse our car is. So, for all of these reasons, it makes no sense for us to be sending either driver out to do quali laps
100%.
underfueled. Like the fact that George did not have enough fuel to do more laps really put him at a disadvantage. On top of the fact that because the car was so like hard to drive, because you could see even Lewis was making
Yep. Yep. Yep.
some
Yep.
errors as well, but it was hard to drive. So George was making a lot of errors, and so through his fault and through the team's fault, he was out early. And so, I mean, he should not have been given the run that he's had, the form that he's had for the season. So, yeah, it was kind of wild to see that as well. And to hear that the team just kind of made that like fundamental error and for really no reason. It's just, yeah,
See,
Mercedes
this
is,
is why I don't get
mm,
mad when people say Toto's just a businessman, right? Because it's like,
he
come on, big
is.
dog. The car's not there, my boy. And keeping a thou out,
Yeah.
I just was kind of shocked because even Lewis, by the way, Q1, I think, or is it Q1 or Q2? No,
Mm-hmm.
Q1. Or yeah, Q2. Yeah,
Q2.
you would know. Like barely scraped by the skin of his teeth over
Just like,
Nico Hulkenberg, right? And so I'm just
yeah.
kind of like, you see, my brother in Christ, you see the evidence that this car does not have it. You got to
It
stop,
doesn't. Ugh.
Lewis and Shaw lying this, and just you got to get out there and get as many laps in as possible. So
Yes.
I again, as a very biased Lewis Hamilton fan, is my podcast, so I can be biased all I want. I was happy to not see George make it past Q1.
Same.
Only if just to quiet like Tasha. Okay, no, listen,
Be
moment of
messy. I love
levity
it.
for
Do
me
it.
right now. No,
Choose
because
violence.
here's
Okay.
when they show the head-to-head graphic, and it's clearly
Right.
George is like destroying Lewis in that head-to-head. Why do they always miss
Right.
the second half of that conversation? Hey, what's the point differential between these two?
Like you see how propaganda works? Take out all the context and just feed you the lies. Like Mr. Saturday. Okay, that's
Be
great, but
Mr.
points are for
Sunday,
Sunday,
dog.
right? And so be
And because
Mr.
he's always going back,
Sunday.
he's always going backwards. Lewis is always going forward. And then that just feeds
Mm-hmm.
into he's washed, he's not good, he's blah, blah, blah. But the car is where it's at because of whose input.
Lewis.
So I can't
Yeah.
wait for, GR63 and his feedback for next year's car and how that car is
I'm so excited for that, actually. I
the
can't wait to see
fruits.
what Mercedes
Yeah,
looks like
the
without
fruits, the
Lewis
fruits of
Hamilton.
their
Right.
labor. So
Right.
George is out, so that
Mm.
inevitably puts Lewis. Obviously, is going to out qualify him. I'll be honest. I
Right.
thought because of the weather conditions, he maybe would have qualified a little bit higher than fifth. I didn't expect pole to be on, but I thought maybe
Mm-hmm.
four, maybe third, and that might be the
Right.
delusion on my end because I didn't feel like we were slower than the Ferraris. I didn't feel like
Yeah.
we were that far
Not that much.
behind Red Bull, right? And also given the conditions and
Right.
how they had to set the laps, and given that I think Lewis set the fastest lap of one of the queues, right? And he was number one there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, he ends up qualifying fifth. Awesome. The one team, and just to round out qualifying that didn't even bother any kind of strategy was Alpine. So, for those of y'all who, and by the way, this is a plug for
Oh,
Quick Stop.
Lord.
On Quick Stop, there was a quote that I think Nasha said. What was it like? Alpine is the question. What is the answer? Or something like it was like real.
Oh, yeah. If Alpine is the answer, what is the question?
So here's honestly, can I be real? Like I actually hadn't paid any attention to Alpine, like
Yeah.
because Alpine for me is like those two are
Yeah.
beefing. They'll be beefing for generations. I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Esteban was gonna go to Williams, but now he's maybe going to Haas. So like I literally like sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
legitimately forget that they're a team. So I guess
Right. I think they do too, to be honest.
No, I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect that. No, yeah, disrespect away. No, so I guess like what the hell were they thinking? Like they're not like they didn't even buy. And by the way, Pierre ended up starting from the lane pit start for Pierre, and he didn't even finish the race. So
He
that's two
didn't
in a row he
finish.
didn't finish.
Yeah.
Why did they do that
Alpine is such a mystery to
to us
me
all?
because it's expensive to be a
100,000%.
Formula
Yeah,
One
they should
team,
just sell
right?
to Andretti at
You're
this
spending
point. Yeah,
millions of
yeah.
dollars to be what's worse than mid. You know what I'm saying? Like we nobody has a clue how to get this team together. Bruno Famin staged a coup
Fair,
to become the
fair.
team principal. And what did he do?
Nothing,
What did he do?
nothing.
All that for them to still be in the back of the grid. They qualified lower than Checo and Checo
Hey,
crashed.
yo, I actually
Like
hadn't
that's
even thought.
crazy.
Yeah,
It's
I hadn't
fucking
thought about
crazy.
that. No, I let you.
Like what? How do you manage that?
What is that? Is that like the SATs where you get all those points for just like putting your name in, and they just
Put your
forgot
name
to
on the
do
paper.
that? Wow, yeah, you're right. That's
They put in a lap. They said, "Okay, we're good." They were like, "Ha, beat that," and then literally everybody called their bluff. It was crazy.
okay.
It was
Yeah.
nuts.
First of all,
It was
I'm gonna
nuts.
walk back a couple of statements. One, yes, you're right. I can't believe they let they let America's dad go when Sofnar, when they said, "Hey, buddy, au revoir." Thank you.
Justice for
You
Otmar.
understand? If you grew up in the Midwest, by the way, Otmar has like,
Yeah.
man, that's a Michigan accent if I ever heard one. The second thing, so here's my theory about Alpine. This is completely messy. I actually think Alpine's a big Ponzi, like money laundering scheme, right? So
Mm,
you bring in all these
okay.
investors, right, and they just dump their money,
Right.
and they got nothing to show for it. Because if
Right.
I'm Patrick Mahomes, if I'm Travis Kelsey, if I'm Anthony Johnson, and I'm looking at this team that's absolute
Ryan
absolute
Reynolds,
buns,
like
right? And not only
right.
that, now they're talking about having Mercedes make their engines. I'm gonna need you to get my money back.
Yeah. Being a
Hey, is this a
customer team
Costco?
is
Can I take this
crazy.
back? Is there a year where I had?
Is this a
Come
mattress
on.
firm? Because like nobody's ever in here, but y'all still open. Like I don't get it. Like that's genuinely Alpine. Like
See, and
for
so
real.
yeah,
I think they're lucky in terms of investors that their investors are
doing other
busy
stuff.
actually
Yeah,
being good
successful.
at their
Yeah, yeah,
jobs.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like so when they get a little break and they check their portfolio, then I think
Hey,
there will
honestly,
be some
what I'm waiting on
repercussions.
is for Taylor Swift to become an Alpine investor.
Child.
Hey,
Oh my god.
hey,
The
let's
Swifties with their
go.
own team would
Let's
be
go.
crazy.
Hey,
F1
hey,
Taylor's
Code
version.
LH, watch out. You got the Swifties and Alpine.
Right.
Oh, no, that would be wild.
Yeah, we got to
All right,
recruit
so the
them.
race starts.
Yeah.
Lando on pole, Oscar right behind him, Max closing out
Mm,
that top three. Great, awesome.
yeah.
Carlos Sainz, which no one is scared of him, is on the side. I said what I said. So I guess let's get into that race. Why why does Lando Norris have a 0% pole to win conversion rate?
Nasty work. That is nasty
He's 100%
work.
at not winning from pole. I love that for him. He somehow manages to clutch defeat from the jaws of
Oh my
victory.
god.
And so
Yeah.
I honestly,
Mm,
I was not surprised when I saw Oscar get a better start than him, right? Because I saw it in the
yeah.
sprint race. Lewis did it to him last year. Max did it to him. Carlos Sainz has done it to him. Like just a theme. So let me start there. In
Yeah.
your mind, your thoughts. Why is
Mhm.
it that Lando cannot not only get a good start, but just convert those poles, especially in what everyone is telling me is the fastest car on the grid right now?
Right. He's a head case. Honestly, like I feel like he's somebody who's less confident than they appear. He constantly is getting sunned on these
100%.
in every race,
Love to
whether
see
it's
it.
his teammate,
Yes.
other people, Max,
Especially his
especially
buddy.
Max. Like
Love me,
he just
Max.
can't. He's like, I love you. Don't be mad at
Are we still
me.
on, are we still on
Just
for
wanted to.
pickleball later in Monaco?
Oh,
Please.
right? Paddle leader in Barcelona. So yeah, it's he's a head case. You hear it when he talks about himself, like after races where he doesn't get the result he expects, of like, oh, I'm so horrible and I should be doing better. And it's like, yeah, you should be. And like, I'm sorry, but self-deprecation is fine, but if you're not going to like
Yeah,
act on
yeah,
that in terms of
yeah.
like figuring out how to like actually be better, then you're never going to be better. So yeah, I think we're going to see gradually this remaining part of the season what's left of his
Mm-hmm.
confidence chip away. Like these starts are
Yeah, horrendous. Yeah.
horrible for him.
Um,
Like you said, that ratio is nasty work, so it's not going to
Hey, and you
get
know
better
what?
from
I love to see it.
there.
Okay. I love to see it. Yeah. Because
I
here's,
do
I
too.
guess, the thing
Yeah.
for me, which, so part of what made, and I know it's the same for you, part of the thing that made it really entertaining for me, right? So McLaren, wow, let me gather my thoughts. First of all, yes, Lando, not surprised that he didn't get off to a start, but immediately he's on the radio. By the way, like, I have always maintained from the very first episode of this podcast to now that all of these drivers
Yeah.
are federales. They're all feds. They just narc on each other the entire time.
Like she
Yeah.
came back on the track
He's got to give, Max has to give
unsafely.
that position back. Max has, and by the way,
Stop
even the
crying.
universe's favorite son, Lewis Hamilton, does it as well. So they're all a bunch of
Yeah,
feds.
everybody does
All right,
it. Yeah.
they're feds, and I'm just like,
Tattletales. Yeah.
Lord. So for me, it started not only because when the race started, he got a bad start. Then he tried to push Oscar. That bad strategy led to Max being able to come up on his left side. He's like, "Oh shoot, I gotta close this out."
Oh
And
no,
Oscar
gotta
was
defend.
like,
Yeah.
Oscar, I feel like. So I use a phrase for Oscar that's real corny. I call him yold. He's like young, old. He's young, but he looks old, but he looks young. Anyways, Oscar,
Right.
yeah,
He's
just
an old
ice in his
soul.
veins. Like, well, I'm gonna do it. And also, by the way, just like you said, the pregnant
Yeah.
pause. So I want you to talk about that. The pregnant pause when they asked him, Oscar, what are you gonna do? And he was like, and I know in his mind, Oscar was like, yeah, I'm gonna bust his ass. I'm gonna
Right.
go. This guy can't see me. Yeah,
This guy sucks at starts. Like, I mean,
I'm
he
good.
knows that.
He's like, we'll see.
I'm gonna play the team
Okay.
game.
Like, get out of here, bro. Get out.
Nervous laughter. Yeah.
Who knows? I'm gonna pass. Just kidding. Anyways, and so like for
Right.
me, it's a situation where I feel like Lando, yes, he's definitely in his head. I don't like the self-deprecation thing that he does. And by the way, like I can only assume it's very boring, but it's also negative. I don't know if you've ever been around people who are constantly like self-deprecating. After a while, you're just like, Lord, I just need a break, some positivity. Like, let me walk by. Maybe the bird singing will uplift me. Because being next to all that,
Right.
like, and everybody's like, he's his toughest critic. Lando, so brave. They're like what?
But you know what it is with self-deprecation is like at a certain point, I'm gonna be
Oh, yeah.
inclined to agree with you. If you keep
Yeah, you
telling me
suck.
that you suck, I'm gonna just say that you. Yeah, sure. I'm not gonna. What do you want from everybody to be like? Oh no, Lando, you're amazing. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can. You
Well,
can't do
yeah,
it.
and it's hard.
Maybe
Like,
you can't.
go, just
You're not that guy.
go
Maybe
back
you
to
should.
Adam, fourth richest man in the UK.
Yeah.
Have him give you money and you can dry your tears with the 100-pound. Anyways, and so like I felt like that was gonna happen. But for me with Lando,
Yeah.
obviously, as the race progresses, we get the whole drama of McLaren. So one phrase that I use with McLaren is that right now, obviously, everyone knows that they're not equipped for the moment, right? It's been a minute. Their strategy also buns, like they can't do anything with it. They have this innate talent for the last couple races of being able to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. All right. And I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, McLaren. I don't know why. First of all, they talk about we were trying to hold off or prevent Lewis from passing us later on. That for me is honestly the most puzzling thing that they said. Not that we're gonna pit Lando, because like the pit stops at first, fine. The second stint pit stops were obviously where they got into hot water, bringing Lando in first and Oscar, and then they're like, hey, we're gonna switch these positions. But their reasoning and their rationale for it made zero sense to me. Again, Mercedes wasn't touching them. That car was not fast enough, and so is Lewis Hamilton's aura that great that McLaren was worried about a car that was maybe the third fastest?
Listen, they were still shook from Silverstone, right? Like, came in and snatched that win like the little candy from a baby. Like,
Like, gotcha.
do you know what I love about that overtake too? Is that it was the Lewis Hamilton straight. Like
Oh, yeah,
he
that's
overtook
facts.
Lando coming out of the pits on the Lewis Hamilton straight. Like nobody else can say that. That's
It's literally
crazy.
Lewis's house. Get out the.
That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally snatched that win. So yeah, I feel like maybe they were a little shook, but I don't know. I feel like that was cover because they've undercut Oscar
Yeah.
before, and they've it's I don't know why today or Sunday was, maybe we should not snatch this win from Oscar after he did 90% of the race, leading and doing great.
So,
So I don't
so
know
I
what
guess
happened,
so.
but yeah.
Follow up question to that. One, like, the radio. What did you think about the radio back and forth between Lando and his engineer? To me, it felt like. So, Tasha, you probably never experienced this, but back in my young days, I used to get a lot of calls from bill collectors, and after a while, I would just like not pick up the phone. I recognize that behavior in Lando. I recognize that behavior. I was like, yeah,
They're like
yeah.
radio check.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave it with God. I may be here. I don't know.
Right.
Does Lando live here? So I guess like,
Right.
what what was your take on that whole back and forth? It was, to me, it seemed childish, obviously, but
Oh man. Lando on the radio. I don't know who I dislike hearing more, Max or Lando. And I err on the side of Lando because Lando is just very
mm,
nasty. Like his
mm,
personality is just so entitled and it
yeah,
just oozes out of every
yeah,
word that he
yeah, yeah,
says.
yeah, yeah.
So even like, Sochi, like, when his engineers were like, hey, come in for inters, and he was like, I got this. All right, girl. And now look. And now look.
You're not
You
that
know what I'm
guy.
saying? We're just trying to
You're
help
not
your
that
ass
guy.
out. You're not him. We just trying to help you out. I'm employed to be helpful to you. I am like Siri
Not
basically for
Siri.
you. So yeah, he acts like you know what I mean? They're there to help him. And so the way that he treats them under
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm,
circumstances,
mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
especially under like pressure moments, is just
Yeah.
very off-putting. And this to me explains why his career looks the way that it looks. Because for all of that yapping he does about, oh, if you have the fastest car, you can easily win. And again, look at that. Look at
Won't he
God.
do it?
See? Because you
Won't he
got the
do it?
fastest car, and look at your fucking record right now. One win,
And how many seasons did it take? It took him what, four,
one,
5 seasons? How many? Thank you. Math is not my
six.
forte, obviously, but
Oh, it's not mine either. But I remember some receipts. But yeah, for me, I just Lando's radio on this race in particular was just like, mm, I couldn't handle it. And the fact that like they were pleading, begging, bargaining with him to get him to understand that if you take this win from Oscar, he's not obligated beyond
not
this
at all.
point to
I
help
wouldn't.
you. And I wouldn't have helped him before, but I mean, he better
That's
than
because
me.
he's so
Oscar's a
mature.
better
He's
man than me.
57 years
You
old.
know,
All right. It takes, yeah, he's a
he's been here
father of
before,
5.
as
I
we
don't
like to
even.
say.
So do you think if Zach Brown had been there in Hungary, do you think that would have gone on as long as it would have? Or would he have just been like, nope, Oscar, sorry, pal?
Honestly, because I feel like Lando has that "I'm better than everyone" air. I feel like, and Zach and his relationship is so familiar as it is. I feel like if Zach came on, Lando would probably said the same thing of like, "Well, if you want him to pass me, tell him to hurry up."
Mm,
The whole time, Lando's speeding up, so at the same time he's saying, to Oscar to catch up, he's speeding up,
can't get
running
him.
through his tires. So he's like, ha ha. So I don't know. It's just that was really kind of put a dampener on the race for me, just because I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard to get you to follow orders, because like I said, we've seen previous times in the season where Oscar
Mm-hmm.
was given an order
Yep.
and just followed it. You know what I mean? Like it didn't take, was it
It
10
was
laps?
no,
Nine?
it
I don't
was a
even know how
lot.
many
Yeah, it was
laps
a
it
lot of
was.
laps.
It's too many laps. And the thing, and this is why I say like too with Lando, is like if you would have just swapped more quickly, you probably would have been able to catch him and overtake him at some point. Do you
See,
know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So he's playing checkers when he could be playing chess, and this is
Tasha,
part of
listen,
his
I was literally
problem.
thinking about that
He
same
doesn't.
thing. Chest check.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
if he would have just, because he's been faster and he has Lando's faster than Oscar. He has better overall
hmm
tire management, and he's not a bad driver, but it's like you have all those tools, but when it's a pressure moment, suddenly you don't recall any of them. You can't. mm,
So I
it's
I
tough to
feel
watch.
like if Zach Brown had actually been there, I think Zach would have let him take that
Yeah.
win. I
Mm,
think so. So you talked about how him and Zach are like real familiar.
that's
You
true.
remember when like contract
Yeah.
negotiations were going
Father
on and
son.
like how Zach looks at like Lando is Zach's first like we brought you up from the lower
Yeah.
leagues. I signed you. I brought 1,000,005
Hmm.
sponsors to this car and like everyone's seeing great return on
Right.
investment. Then I got Oscar in the middle of the night from Alpine because they were messing
Hmm.
up. But I feel like Zach would have said, "Hey, we're in this for a championship, and we got to pounce on Red Bull while they're down.
Mm,
Lando's my son. I would give him my kidney if I
right.
could." And so I feel like had Zach been there, I actually think he would have said, "No, just let it be." Like if Oscar can catch him, if
That's a
Oscar can
good
catch
read on
him,
it. Yeah.
great. But whatever,
Right. Let him
and then I
race.
would have said,
Yeah.
but at what cost? Right? You went through all of this legal mumbo jumbo to get Oscar on your team, and then you keep screwing him out of
Hmm.
race wins with these pit stops. Like, tell your boy
Yeah.
to get off the line better, and then maybe this won't be a problem. Tell him to not choke under pressure. Tell him to not let his buddy Max pass him like nothing, right? And so like,
Right.
yeah. So for me,
Hmm.
the radio thing was definitely it was entertaining, but then actually it became a little bit off-putting, especially because like it was crickets on Oscar's radio, right? So Oscar is trusting the process,
Yeah.
and like the only thing you hear him, I think, is like lap 64, something like that. He's like, "Hey,
Hmm.
it's getting a little like late in the game for us to do this. Like, are we really about to do this, or like what's happening?" And I think Oscar would
Yeah.
have been seething had it not happened, but he wouldn't have like really shown it. But
Yeah.
yeah, the radio was like super off-putting to me, and I think the consequence of that, I felt this too when Oscar won. He finally was given the place back, and they're like showing the team
Hmm.
radio, and maybe this is just Oscar's personality. It was kind of like, yeah, I won.
Like, woo.
And I have to
Very
feel like
subdued.
some of that had to be because of how it all went down, right? Like I got the better start,
Yeah.
then you guys messed up the strategy, and then you had to tell him to give me the position back. So I guess I'm asking you,
Right.
did you notice that the downtrodden Oscar response, or maybe it wasn't downtrodden, and do you feel like maybe part of it was like I didn't actually get this on my own merit, it was just like given back to me, or did he just not care? It's like, oh, I got a
Hmm.
W in my second year in the top leagues.
Right. I felt like it was a little subdued at first because, and maybe it was like a mixture of shock of
Right,
like
right, right,
winning your
right.
first race, so maybe there was some of that, but definitely I heard in his voice a little bit like if it felt apologetic, and I think he did apologize for like, you know, eh, eh, the swap situation. Like I feel like I can't remember how he phrased it, but I think it just put a little bit of a dampener on what should have been like a really joyous moment for Oscar because from the moment the McLaren did better, was starting to do better in the
Mm-hmm.
latter half
Mm-hmm.
of that
Yeah, yeah,
season, I was just like, oh, he's okay. I can see why McLaren
yeah.
fought for him.
100%.
Like
Yep.
I understand it now. And then because his first year, that was his first time driving a lot of those tracks. He had never been
Mm-hmm.
in Formula One before, so for all of these pressures that were on him, I mean, the pressure
Sure.
obviously to perform because you made this huge deal about leaving Alpine, going to McLaren. So obviously people are very much watching to see what you're doing. And so he handled the pressure so well, he handled the newness so well. So for me, the last season, I was just like, okay, I'm really impressed by him. And coming into this season, he's not only I feel like hung on to Lando, but I do feel like he's improved
Yes.
even more, and I can see his trajectory is
Yes.
like going up, and obviously things like his tire management are
Yep.
only going to get better from here, but it's the fact that he's adapted so well so quickly that just for me I'm just like, this kid is he's got it. Like I see this little spark in him that actually feels like it will be something. And yeah, so for me I'm just like, I feel like he's been knocking on the door of a win for many of the races this season, and I'm really happy that
Mm-hmm.
it finally
Mm-hmm.
happened for him. And obviously, as soon as it did in his 35 races
Hey,
into
let's
your career. took some
Maybe
people a few
a
seasons.
we got
You know,
receipts.
being a baby goat's not for everybody. I understand. So
Yeah, the class of
but
2019.
yeah,
Mm, um, no, yeah. So for me, like, so I became an Oscar Piastri fan. Honestly, when Alpine said we signed Oscar, and Oscar was like, "Oh, wait a minute,
right.
you got a little too
He's like,
much dip on your chip right now."
literally, he was like, "Did you
It's
though?"
like, they said this, but I'm
Let me call my
yeah.
legal team.
It's
Hold
like he
on.
was like, whoa. And so like for me, I was like, okay, this guy is 10
Right.
toes down. He said, no, not me. You guys, not
Right.
me. I'm not gonna be on
Right.
Alpine. Good luck. Y'all lost Alonso. If Alonso don't want to be there, I don't want to be there. And again, hey,
Why would I want to
chess
be there? Right.
chess checkers. He may have seen where
Yeah.
Alpine was headed. It was like, I'm good. No gracias. I'm out.
Mm.
Uh, and so the topic of the radio. So while I'm on there, let's talk about
Mhm.
the world champion uh, elect Max
Oof.
Verstappen. Now, so I watched. So first I saw the race live with the F1
Mhm.
commentary because sometimes like the Sky
Right.
Sports International they just it's a lot and it's like Crofty just
They
saying a
do.
lot
Yeah.
and I'm just like relax. All right, done. But when I saw it, I rewatched it again, but with the Sky Sports commentary because Crofty was like somebody's dad who just kept saying, if he hadn't stayed up, this wouldn't be happening. I'm like,
Right. Should have
who
took his to
cares?
bed.
But I
Yeah.
guess at so something that you tweeted out, and this is where I'm going with this with the radio. Something that you tweeted out had me cracking up. So GP did clap back. And I want to say that GP he sunned Max live
Yeah.
on TV when he was like, this is childish. I'm not gonna and I was like, hey, he said, hey, pow pow, Max, pow pow,
He
go to your
said,
corner.
"Grow up."
Go to your corner.
He said, "Yeah,
He said,
I'm not doing
what did
that
dad
today."
say? He did that to and so I guess
He-
thoughts on Max Verstappen's no good terrible race and ultimately the fact that he can't race with Lewis Hamilton, who by the way, who is not fighting for a championship and is basically I love this version of Lewis. That's like, hey bro, if we're gonna crash, we're gonna crash. You got more at stake than I do, but
it is what it is. Yeah. Oh man, am I enjoying this Max
mm-hmm,
Verstappen? I'm not gonna call it a
no.
downfall because it's not that, but it's the unraveling of Max Verstappen this season because Red Bull has not been the rocket ship that it once was. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
teams have caught up. At least they're competitive in some ways, not able to just blast by people anymore. So yeah, DRS stopping is no longer, at least for now, temporarily. We'll see.
Should
Um
have never let Adrian Newey go. That's all I'm gonna say.
right.
He would have fixed
Right,
this.
right. Well, apparently he didn't do anything to the
Yeah,
car,
because the
so
team runs on
you
Christian
know,
Horner's ego and his ego only. All right, he's
yeah.
bigger than the team.
Well, the T is apparently that Red Bull has a lot of other engineers, so Adrian Newey actually didn't have that much to do with the RB19. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Um, I wouldn't have said that out loud,
Do
but
you, big
that's
dog?
that's
Yeah,
just me.
basically.
But right. So anyway, we're seeing the not single-handedly Adrian Newey's
Mm-hmm.
design car
Mm-hmm.
functioning as it is currently. And so yeah, the unraveling, that's what I found actually really
Yeah.
comical this race because his radios weren't funny from the standpoint of like, man, you're being
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
disrespectful right now to
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody involved. But they were funny from a standpoint of like, man, this guy is completely unhinged. Like I'm having to do everything myself. This is a shit strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's just going on and on and on and on. And so, yeah, for me, I did have to have a little chuckle because I was like, this guy is, he cracks me up a little bit when it comes to being at work because he's just sometimes doesn't want to be there. And I feel him on that, in some ways, but I've never talked to anybody like that. So that's how I'm also
So
like, we're
listen,
different there.
I want to say this, and I don't feel like what I'm about to say is like actually spicy, but I feel like the Netherlands,
Mm,
people from the Netherlands just keep it too real, right? Like
fuck.
there's no like,
Yeah.
hey, bro, It's not
There's
work.
no
Yeah, there's no
sugarcoating
like we're
anything.
gonna
Yeah.
meander and I'm gonna try to drop contextual
Right.
clues so you know that like your
Mm-mm.
breath stinks without me actually saying that. No, like somebody from the Netherlands would be like, "Hey, go brush your teeth." Dog. And so like for me, like
Right.
yeah,
Go scrape your
something
tongue.
rinse it out. You know, Dr. Tom's, whatever. But anyways, wow. Um,
Little oil
wow, not the
pulling.
oil pull the coconuts. And so like for me with Max, it's a situation where what I'm seeing actually, as a father, this is very reminiscent of your kid
Mm,
not winning, picking up his toys and going home, right?
right.
So like when you say unraveling,
Right.
I actually do feel like it's unraveling because 2021
Yeah.
was Max saying I'm going to give it everything, right? And ultimately, in my
Right.
opinion, you saw that like he had to have help from one Michael Massey to accomplish the goal. Now, Lewis, to
Mm-hmm.
his credit, doesn't hold that against it. I'm not going to bring up Abu Dhabi like yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
bringing
yeah,
up
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
But
just
then
kidding.
you have 22 where he started off and like his car kept like messing up, but then he just went on that run of just like just winning. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool, whatever. And you
Right.
saw a little bit in Brazil 2022, him and Lewis, and Max was like, well, he's got more to lose than I do, so whatever. I was like, all right,
Right.
I see you. 23 was a runaway boring season, and you know it was a boring season because I've never been so hyped in my life to see Carlos Sainz win a race
Win a
ever. Oh
race.
my
Oh my
lord! I was
god.
like, what? And Austin
Oh.
was another one. I was like, oh man, Lewis, and then anyways,
Yeah,
and so
Austin
and
was
then they got
fun.
disqualified, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. It
But
was fun and then
but
it wasn't.
now that he's no longer just like the runaway favorite
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not that he matured. It's just that he didn't have to be that Max when he was out in front by 26 days, right? It
By
was like,
himself.
oh, what a
Yeah.
lovely drive. Thank you. That was great, that one, or whatever it is. A terrible accent, by the way. And so, like, for me, when I was hearing the radio, so two things that stood out for me. One,
Mm-hmm.
the comfortableness of which he was disrespecting his race engineer. He was just calling him out his name the entire race. Now, people always say,
Mm-hmm.
they like to say, hey, that's just their relationship and it shows that like it's blah blah blah
Right.
blah. And I'm just like, all right. So when Yuki does it, Yuki's got a
Right.
temper problem. Yuki's got to tone it down.
Right.
But when Max does it, he's just being like, no, he's being passionate. That's
He's,
yeah.
that's just a world
And
champion.
that's BS. And so
Okay.
for me, like that all culminates. To me, Lewis is always going to be better than him. And to me, the reason I know that Lewis is still in his head is because Lewis Alonso'd him the entire race until
Mm-hmm.
he pitted, right? And then when Max
Right.
finally just like lost control both times, by the way. The first time he couldn't keep it on the track, so he ran wide and then ended up behind Lewis. And the second
Mm-hmm.
time, obviously, they collided, right? And GP
Yeah.
he was over it, right? Because when Max was complaining, he's like, no, I don't want to hear it. And that's when GP sunned him on the radio, right?
Right.
For me, the only thing I loved about that was just seeing Lewis not yield. Because honestly, had they crashed and both DNF'd, I would have been like,
I would have been
I would not
pissed.
have been.
I would have been. Because I just am like, why can't you ever race each other? Why can't Max ever race with Lewis without hitting him? And that would have bothered me
Mm,
because, again, we're back to every time that Max needs to, and it's not just
right,
Lewis,
right.
it's pretty much anybody. If there's an accident on track, Max Verstappen is at the scene of the crime, like every single time, basically. This guy refuses to I don't even want to say adjust his racecraft because this is his racecraft. Like his whole thing is, if I can't get around you, then we're crashing. He makes a choice. Like other drivers have accidents all the time, and yeah, we call them bums or whatever. But Max, this is a choice that he makes
100%.
to drive like this, to
100%.
be like this, and then the FIA and everybody kind of, allows him to do this by the way that they bend the rules or find little loopholes in the gray areas or repaint the lines for him. So like everything's just made to make him comfortable. So he's having a great time, and that's why he gets away with this shit, and that's why he chooses to do it. So I can't respect him for that. I hate that he's always the one to throw the wet blanket on the
Not
party.
the wet
We can't
blanket.
ever get through
Damn.
a race
Dang.
He is. I just feel because you know what I mean? Like the race was entertaining enough. We're about to get to the end. You know, Oscar or Lando was about to win the race. Imagine if they had that collision between Lewis and Max results in a safety car. And it's like the flow of the race is stopped. It's like, come on, this was for what?
For third place.
To
Yeah,
fight for
P3.
third
Gotta get
place?
more or less. I just feel like my bias
Come
says
on,
that
man.
really it's him trying to prove that he is a better driver out of like him and the GOAT.
Well, he
And
didn't
I'm
do it
like,
today.
hey pal, I don't know how to tell you. And for me, like, so another thing, like one thing that I've noticed about like, again, unsubstantiated, and if I had like more time to research it, I feel like the driving style of like an Alonso, a Lewis, so like the older generation is one that says like, hey, I got here first. You see that corner, it's like, oh, you got
Right.
me. Oh, I'll stick around and get you on the next one. But I feel like this new
Next one,
generation
yeah.
is like, hey, we're gonna play a game of chicken. Who's gonna back out, me or
Bumper
you?
cars.
Oh, so we both crashing, yeah.
Bumper
So
cars.
it was a little
Right. We're both
sloppy,
out, yeah.
but don't let that stop you from this. Lewis ended up unscathed. By the way, like the little pause when their cars like bumped, the little like millisecond pause that Lewis, you know, like when somebody like is acting out, they're just like wilding out and they fall in front of you, and you're just kind of like, and then you just like keep
Right.
like, it's like not my problem. Ooh,
Right.
That was weird.
That's
So don't let that
yeah.
stop you from. I would like to again call out Lewis Hamilton with his 200th podium. Best stat
Yeah.
about the 200th podium is that because he has 104 wins, the most ever in the history of Formula One, Lewis has been on the top step for more than 50% of his entire career, which is a crazy stat to me. And
likely place for him to be.
you know what? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so for me, like I love to see it. I knew that he was, for me, I'm walking away with something, right? Oscar got that P1. Max doesn't get on the podium. You see future teammates in third and fourth. So it's a great day. Lewis with his 200th podium. You got entertainment, like Maury-esque radio throughout the entire race. And so I guess talking about some positivity on the race. Did you feel anything? Sure. Probably not. I'm putting emotions into it right now and talking for you, so I'll shut up in a second. You probably didn't feel the same way as when he got that win at Silverstone, but did you feel anything when he got his 200th podium? The consistency, the aura, the greatness, like.
I mean, definitely, Silverstone was just a different beast, right? Because that was just like a buildup of so much emotion, so many close calls, and finally it was like this catharsis that happened for him, for the fans. Like that was just completely different. Whereas, and you know, funny enough, like throughout these past few seasons, even though Lewis, the car has not been there, Lewis has been making, you know, a few more mistakes than usual. He's still been setting records. Like this man has been making history every time that he race starts or podiums or whatever. So yeah, this one felt like really good because obviously it just speaks to, like you said, his level of consistency. And I think that it's a level that these guys that are around him right now could only dream of, right? Like you wish that you could even start as many races as he's been in so far, that let alone be on that many podiums. And like it seems like such a insane number when you think about it, because these races are not hard to win, they're not hard to podium on, especially during a time, you know, when he came up they had more reliability issues, and you know that came into play many times for him in his career. So to contextualize 200 podiums in that span of a career throughout so many regulation changes, so many other amazing drivers that, you know, he was competing against, like he's him. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you have to definitely be excited for something like this. It seems like such a huge number, kind of like, you know, when you talk about the size of a planet relative to Earth, like it's hard to conceptualize, you know, how big the sun is compared to us on this little tiny rock floating in space. But that's kind of what it's like, right? You kind of have to, those big numbers in a situation like this really do, it's astronomical. Like we will never see another Lewis Hamilton in our
if
lifetime.
We were in church,
so.
I'd be standing up doing one of these. Yeah. God is good.
Hey,
God is good. I want to do it. If this was quick stop, hey, Nasha, if you
the gunshots.
Claps, yes, all of that. So for me, you know what I love about like I love the consistency in Lewis, all the things that we just said,
Hmm.
but it's the positivity to push it forward to the next
Yeah,
generation. Because when Charles
absolutely.
Leclerc won in Monaco, Lewis was there. When Piastri got his first win, when Esteban got his first, like Lewis has always been so
Hmm.
supportive of these drivers and recognizing, like,
Good
hey,
dad.
that's crazy. You know, I feel like in his
Right.
mind, he's like, y'all never beat me, but that's cute. You got this, you got
Right.
this
It's good
little
for you.
win. I
Yeah.
could spare one. I've had so many. Like, it's a great feeling. I know because I've had 104. But I do
Yeah.
appreciate that I don't feel like Lewis has a lot of true friends on the grid, right? But I do feel like
Mm.
he is
Yeah.
supportive of people, which is why
Yes.
it irks me so bad. And probably the biggest reason that I don't like Lando Norris is just like the disrespect, whether it's overt or
Hmm.
whether it's like undercover or backhanded, that he does towards Lewis.
Right.
A guy who, by the way, is super
So
positive towards him.
unnecessary.
Great job,
Hmm.
Lando. He's the future of the sport. All this stuff, right? Only for Lando that's just like the only time I hear Lando Norris pay Lewis a compliment is when something in his brain clicks and it's like, ooh, this gonna be bad PR if I
Right.
better say
let me
something.
let me
The
fix the
greatest of all
situation.
time,
Yeah.
Lewis, and and so like for me,
Right.
I think you noticed it, but did you feel any type of way in the cool down room when Lewis said, hey, y'all car is fast? And he was like, oh,
Right.
yeah, well, you had the fastest car for 7 years. Now it's our turn. And you saw a little bit of
Hmm.
Lewis come out and it was like, yeah,
I was like, let me catch
it's
myself.
like,
Let me collect
were
myself.
you even around 7 years? And then so I guess did you feel it? Because I did. And then let me let you talk before I go off on a tangent.
I mean, so Lando's whole vibe, and I get it, because I'm not going to sit here and try to say like he should not feel some kind of way after that race. You know what I mean? Like, I get why he's frustrated and irritated and why he had to come in and
Mhm.
throw the hat on the ground. Lewis's facial expressions in that moment was hilarious. He was like, "Oh, I've been there. Let me just let you feel your feelings." But he tried to break that tension a little bit, just by saying, "Hey, you guys were fast," which he's not wrong. I mean, it's factual. It's not like he's saying you guys are car merchants. By the way, you can't really be a car merchant because you haven't won anything.
Hey,
So, you know
truth
what I'm
hurts.
saying? So he's not
Mhm.
calling you a car merchant. He's just saying you guys were fast, which was true. So yeah, I always feel some kind of way with Lynn. I catch it. He throws a lot of shade, and I always clock that shit. So
Mm.
it's like, once again, here you are. Oh, you had the fastest car for 7 years. But guess what he did with that fastest car
One.
for 7 years? He wasn't out here with a 0% pole to win ratio. Are you crazy? Are you crazy?
I just
The setup was insane.
my favorite
Like,
part
come
of
on
that too
now.
was like Oscar just kind of being in the room and just like, hey, what's that kid's name? You
Yeah.
remember that old meme like Terry? Is it Terry O? Or he's just kind of like that little kid. He's just like eating his ice cream. And he's just kind of like,
Oh, with the side
like
eye.
that to me is Oscar at all times. He's like,
Yeah, all times.
I
He's like,
won
I'm not
this
really in
race,
this.
but and so
I knew it was gonna be awkward, but after that, because I was just like,
I
"There's
just
no."
so for me it's another one is again Lewis is better than me because he took the high road. All the things that you just said, I would have been like,
Hmm.
wait a minute, uh,
Right.
nope, and I would have like cut him down. But again, like obviously, had he done that, people would have been like, why is Lewis Hamilton so aggressive? And he's been there.
He doesn't have that
He's
grace.
just mad
Yeah.
because Lando's more fashionable than him, and that's why he's acting out. Blah, 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 right? Yeah, his people are setting him up for sure. By the way, Lando's because he's not fashionable. I said what I said. And so like that made me feel some type of way because again, Lewis is always trying to big up people. Like I feel like at this point, the only thing Lewis is trying to do is get
Absolutely.
in a car that's fast so he can get his eighth. And frankly, I feel like once he gets his eighth, he's gonna be helping Charles Leclerc. He's like, hey, I got that eighth one. I keep getting these victories. Let me help Charles get his, and then I'm off. Right. Then I'm
Right.
gonna be Ferrari's brand ambassador because Mercedes fumbled this bag. So whatever. But with Lando, like it did make me feel it made me not ever want him to. And the only time I felt like, yeah, okay, Lando, you got yours was when he
Mm,
won Miami. I was like, yeah, you got that monkey off your back. Good for you. But then, like,
right.
and I, this already been a big Lando Norris hate fest. But for me, I'm just kind of like, dog, he was literally just trying to big you right now. Like, big up. Like, why,
Yeah.
why you come?
He's been there. I mean, this guy's been on the grid for what, 17 years now. Like, he knows, and he's been through a situation like Lando's in. I mean, not even Land. Even in that case, Oscar's actually being supportive of him. You know what I mean? Oscar's could
I'm,
be a
I'm
menace. Like
waiting.
he could be a
I
Nico
hope so.
Rosberg. This could be one of
Yes.
those type of situations. You know what I mean? So for him to act like he's being personally victimized every week when the team genuinely is molded around him, all they want to do is support him and love on him, and he cannot produce the results. They got you the car. They have the strategies most of the times. They have the fast pit stops most of the time. It's very rare that McLaren.
Why are you putting asterisks
You
on
know what
all
I'm
of their
saying? Like,
accolades?
because listen, that pit stop in
Yes.
Silverstone was
Yeah, you're
the
right.
reason
You're
why
right.
we were in the situation we were in. So, it's like, yeah, McLaren as a team really works hard to make sure that Lando Norris can be where he's supposed to be. He's the reason why he's not where he's supposed to be. And I see him look at Lewis with such a
100%.
tinge of like
Yeah.
jealousy. Maybe he doesn't, you know, maybe it's not all the time, but I do see that Lewis being the age that he is, that he's been there for so long. I think a lot of these guys
I
are like,
mean,
"Yo, can you leave already? I'm in my prime right now and you're still whooping my ass. Like
yeah,
they're not going to
listen.
get any better than this."
It's,
And Lewis is improving. He's having weird seasons, but he's still that guy. So it's going to be real hard to beat him, and you're in your
they're all
supposed
gonna have to
prime
start
and
becoming
he's
vegans and buy a
39.
bulldog.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc is already on his way. Got his Leo,
Listen,
got that set up. I feel like the next thing is Charles
Leo.
Leclerc. Next thing you know, Lewis joins Ferrari, and then Charles is a vegan. All right,
Hmm.
100%. Because I know Alonso is like,
Everybody plant
ooh,
based. Yeah.
let,
let me
let
let
me
me
put
dabble in
down the
that a little
jamon
bit. You're
iberico
right.
and
You're
pick up
right.
that broccoli instead. But like, you know what I just thought of, and I'm gonna age myself a little bit right now. When I
Hmm.
think about the relationship between Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris, and their backgrounds, right? Their socioeconomic
Hmm.
backgrounds, right? Because I alluded to it earlier, but I
Right.
think Lando's dad, Adam, is the fourth richest guy in the United Kingdom. Well, you got to be
Which is
rich to enter the sport.
insane.
There's literally only three on the grid who.
Absolutely. But the fourth richest
Mhm.
person in a nation like
And
the United
so, did you
Kingdom
ever
is
watch the
insane.
Count of Monte Cristo, like the Jim Caviezel? Same,
Absolutely. I love that
same.
movie.
And so you
I
know the
love
part
that
where
movie. Ugh.
he's asking like, why did you do it? Like, why did you betray me? And he said, because the son of a count
Right.
should not be jealous of ship merchant's son, or whatever that line. And so like that's what,
Right.
like, when you said the jealousy bit, like it finally hit me, right?
Yep.
Like Lando came from this, got the pedigree, has the money, has the financial backing, all of this. Lewis
Hmm.
Hamilton's dad, Anthony, had to pick up however many jobs. He was his mechanic for a long time.
Hmm.
Yeah,
He
had
had
to
to pick
learn
up
how
a
to do this
wrench.
stuff. And Anthony does it with like such grace. And
Right.
Lando's dad, by the way, is also really supportive dad. So I do love to see like supportive dads. No one's
Yeah.
as supportive as Lawrence Stroll, who literally bought a team to get his boy, right? Lance Stroll's
Right.
biggest problem is that his dad loves him more than anybody else's, right? And we're just a bunch of
Right.
haters. All right. Uh, it's so.
I love
I
their
just wish
relationship,
Lance
though, I'm
would
not gonna lie. I do love
bring back
them.
the facial hair
It's
though.
so
Without the, you
wholesome.
know what? This is a completely random.
Listen, speaking of Count of Monte Cristo, when Lance had the
He
facial
was
hair,
wearing
I
that.
was
Hey,
like,
no,
wait
he
a
was wearing
minute.
that. No. He had that.
he,
That's why I
he
tweeted
was
out. I was like, man, he looks
he
like
was giving
somebody's
some.
deal at the quinceañera right now. Like, give him two modelos and he's good to go. And
Yeah,
so,
he
like,
did.
for me, like, going back, it's that like I look at Lando and maybe it is just that like I have everything, and yet I don't have that. And like Lewis has everything now. Don't get me wrong. He
So
worked
empty.
hard
Mm.
for everything, right? He wasn't doing secret
Right.
tests in an F1 car before getting called up, right? And so like maybe that's it, but it's a little bit sad because as Hamilton fans, we are appreciating the greatness that is him now. And the smart
Absolutely.
drivers, in
Yeah.
my opinion, on the grid are recognizing like this guy could literally go on forever. I'm gonna soak in as much from
Absolutely.
him as possible,
Get
right?
close to
You
him
see
under.
Oscar
Yeah.
doing
Exactly.
that, Pierre doing that. You see, yeah, all of
Charles.
these drivers doing that. Charles, and yet you have other drivers that are aligning themselves with like, no, I can be great all by myself, and I'm like, you absolutely can. But here's this guy who's like, hey,
Yeah.
let's just race, and you're a great dude, and nope. And so I don't know. But in any case, to sum it up, shouts out Lewis Hamilton. See, full circle. I can always make it about Lewis. Shouts out Lewis Hamilton for his 200th podium. Shouts out Oscar Piastri for his maiden win. And shouts out GP for sunning Max Verstappen. I said what I said. So, Tasha, we have come to the end, and we do this thing on this show where we call out our pariguayos and our matatans. Now, both very, very, very Dominican phrases. Pariguayo meaning, roughly translated, party watcher. So who's your bum of this race? And we're going to start there. And who's your matatan? So it's the best performance. And it can be multiple people. It could be inanimate objects. In Miami, I said it was the bollard. So who is your pariguayo for the Hungarian Grand Prix?
So what day is today? It's Tuesday. The race was Sunday. So we've had a few days since then, and I've been monitoring Twitter a little bit. And I'm going to give mine to the people who keep making excuses for Lando Norris, specifically the narrative that what if Lando wins this championship or loses his championship by the 7 points that he needed from this race? And to that, I just want to say, if Lando Norris needs those 7 points, and he should have earned them in the last however many races that we've had in the fastest car while the Red Bull is in the position that it's in, if he loses this championship, if he's even going to be in the fight, because let's even start there. Like, let's just start there. Max has like a 3-race win differential in terms of points. So if he's even in the race at some point, and if it comes down to the wire, then it's on Lando. Like, that, the whole conversation we've been having is my whole like thought process behind him in general, is that if everybody's going to bend over backwards to be like, this kid's next up, he's the future, he's whatever, then at some point we need to hold him accountable and be like, okay, so you actually got to be the one to like grab that. If you're really this, the guy that they say that you are, when is that going to come up? Because it's been 6 seasons. You've been the number 1 driver at McLaren. You haven't even had to have the second driver scenario. You've always been the number 1. You've been the guy that everybody is working for. And this is what you're able to produce. So yeah, y'all need to like really wrap your head around the criticism of Lando, because yes, sometimes it comes from a petty place, but at the same time, it also comes from, we're just being observant. Like, this man is not where he needs to be for the car that he has, for the team that he has. Like, he shouldn't be in this position. So if he loses this by 7 points, then that's what he gets, because that start was horrendous. Oscar got him off the line. Everybody else gets him off the line. He couldn't catch Oscar for the whole race. Then they gave him an undercut, and then he didn't want to give it up. I'm not going to imagine being Lando Norris fans right now. Like, what are you defending? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine trying to defend that. Be like, oh, they robbed my guy. Your guy who had a pole and couldn't convert once again. Like,
100%.
Get out of here. So, yeah. Y'all the party watchers, because everybody else is having a blast and y'all are supporting a bum. Hey. So.
Listen, I got to get a soundboard now. All right, so your pariguayo is going to be Lando Norris. Mine, sticking with McLaren, is going to be the McLaren strategy team, because this is becoming a trend. You have to be able to live up to the moment, seize the moment. These things should be, you need to run through these scenarios. What happens if this, or what happens if that? Are we going to do our own race? They've been too defensive when they should be offensive. They've been too offensive when they should be defensive. Their focus on Lewis Hamilton in the last 2 races, I think, has really messed up their strategy. They shouldn't be focusing on him. They should be focusing on their own race, because their car is supposedly the fastest. And so McLaren as a team, and I love one half of that team, right? But McLaren as a team, pariguayos for me, because they somehow, this shouldn't have been a thing. This whole driver swap, this whole, like, even Silverstone, they should have said, Lando, we're going to put you on mediums, all right? Like, you don't know what you're doing. We're going to put you on mediums. When you pit, we're going to put mediums on, and you just do the rest. Just keep doing what you're doing. Lando, guess what? You didn't get the start. We're going to give it to Oscar, because guess what? Like, yeah, if Lando ends up losing by 7 points, he's got to win all those races. And so for me, he's got to depend on the team to give him the strategy. So you're on one side where you're saying, like, he's got to win these races. I'm on the other side that says the people who are trying to help him win these races aren't there yet. they're not there. Like they're not there yet.
Right.
And the thing is, like, I keep
Yeah.
expecting greatness from McLaren, and I keep like, what is the thing they're gonna mess up? And it's just kind of like baffling to me. So
Yeah.
Bariwajos for me, McLaren, we just kept it on that papaya side. Who is your matatan for the race?
Ooh. Oh, man. I want to give it to Oscar. I mean, I guess it's just all McLaren episode. Because like I said, I just feel like I've seen it in him. I don't want to say vindicated, because I don't really like being that person in the F1 community who's like, I need
Yeah.
all of my predictions to come true. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be right about everything. Like, sometimes it's fine to have an opinion, and if it turns out to be true, that's great. But this one, I feel a little bit vindicated, because I feel like Oscar, like I said, he's so new, he's so
Mm.
fresh, and out of the rookie class, I feel like he did the best. Like, he's really come in and showed that he has the composure and the mental strength, I think, to
Yes.
be a
Yes.
champion at some point. But starting with, the way that he's just been hanging in there, like with Lando, like I fully expected him to come into the season and still have a good season. I wasn't expecting him to have like a sprint race win and
Mm.
now a Grand Prix win. Like, that's incredible, So especially when you look at the position of the other rookies that are, on the grid, Logan Sargent, whoever else. Not really, not really.
Oh
It's not
no,
very
yeah,
USA of you.
yeah, not the best of us.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's listen, because like American athletes, like, listen, I
yeah.
won't get into that, but I'm just like, we're supposed to be
Hey,
revered
they're
around the
about to find
world
out in
for
these
our
Olympics for
competitiveness,
sure.
right? That medal count. Ooh,
They're
can't wait.
yeah, they're about
Anyway,
to find out.
um, you about to find out. Yeah, been talking shit about us all year. America, this, Trump, that, da 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 da. Like, whatever. These medals are coming home. So anyway, um, it's, yeah. Oscar to me has, I think, proven
Mm.
himself as somebody who's going to be on like a main fixture on the grid for a long time, and when he eventually gets his racecraft more honed in and his tire management more honed in, I do think he's going to be a big problem. But right now it's just very gratifying to see somebody in his position actually make the most of the tools that he has. And to me, I think mirroring Lando Norris, having the same exact tools,
Mm-hmm.
more of an advantage, really,
Mm-hmm.
because all the resources are kind of for him to be successful. But to see Oscar get the little scraps and still hang in there,
Hey,
still get his wins, that's incredible. So yeah,
I
Oscar
I
is
wholeheartedly
that guy
agree.
for me.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is that guy. He's got that dog in him.
Yeah.
Also, just side note on him, during
Yeah.
the previous race, Oscar is analytical to the point where he knew what tires he needed to be on and he knew how those tires felt. And in the moment,
Yeah.
now Oscar is very cold blooded. So, yes, I can't wait to see what the future for Oscar is. So, wholeheartedly agree. My Matatan honestly would have been the
Yeah.
same, but I would have, you literally said everything I was going to say, which is good. So, my Matatan's actually, I had a secondary just in case. My Matatan's actually go
Mm.
out to Hannah Schmidt and GP. So my favorite thing,
Hey.
man, Hannah Schmidt was going
Yes.
through it. Hannah Schmidt, yes, you know what that
Right.
you know
You
what
see
that
that photo
reminded
of
me
her?
of?
Her
Hannah Schmidt
face.
reminds me of like when women have to work in a room full of men and they're not listening. Like she's the smartest one and they're
Phew.
just not listening. And that she had that face like
Yeah.
these dummies. Why?
Right.
You know
These
what? All right.
motherfuckers.
Go on and get it then. If you like it, I love it. The other person is GP clearly for like
Right.
again, I don't care what people say. I do feel like Max was being super disrespectful to him. Even if I have a tight knit relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lambast them publicly.
It's a
Come on,
line.
dog. And so, like, shouts out to him for
Yeah.
putting him in his place. Obviously, that relationship, they need somebody at Red Bull to do that because nobody else is gonna step up to the plate. So, Matatan's
Mm-hmm.
for me, honestly, is GP and Hannah Schmidt. Just hopefully Spa is better for y'all, but
Yeah.
hey, you'll have to figure out
Hey.
your strategy after Spa when you got Liam Lawson or Daniel Ricciardo in that second Red Bull seat. That strategy is gonna be
Right.
hitting. All right, so
Mm.
we've come to the end. Tasha, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, great question. Because I'm like, I haven't even really been on the internet these days. Well, I have. I'm on Twitter. You guys can find me. I overthink every answer to every question. Um, fun fact about me. Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. You can find me at Tasha,
Don't worry,
and
y'all.
we'll just have to
It'll be
spell
there.
it
You'll
for
see
you
it.
in the description. Because all the
100%.
Natashas of the world steal my handle, so I have to put letters and or numbers and underscores. So
And can they
it's a lot.
continue to watch you on the Quick Stop F1 show on Saturdays?
Absolutely. I'm on Saturdays. Nasha and I co host the Saturday show. When there is a race week, we do post quali. We'll sprinkle in some news. And then off weeks is kind of like maybe
Mm-hmm.
interviews with somebody within the community or just like some kind of like kickback
It
situation.
it is a
It's
blast.
fun.
So
It's
I'm
casual, you
I'm
know.
shouting them
So
out
just vibes.
because
Yeah.
it is great.
Thank
Honestly,
you. We appreciate you so
I'm
much
a
too. We
I'm
see you in
a
the
so,
comments and you're like awesome and
yes.
supportive. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you.
Last thing for real, for real. Looking forward to
Mm.
Spa. Yes. No.
Yes, not necessarily for the. I feel slightly tiny bit burnt
It's
out
a
on the
lot.
races
Yep.
just
Yep.
because
Yep.
they've been so back to back to back to back. So I'm not necessarily looking forward to the race. I'm looking forward to the
Silly
news around the
season.
race. This is the last
Yep.
race before summer break, silly season, Checo's
He gonna
seat
be gone. He gonna be back
news.
in Guadalajara kicking back tequila. Se
Right.
mezcal. Shouts out to him.
Right.
Finally.
He's gonna be a stay-at-home dad. Yeah. So it's that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the mess. Like keep the cars. Give me the tea. I want to know what's gonna be going down. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the end of
Mm.
this run of races, a little bit of a break, slash probably the day after
And
Spa, we're gonna see some crazy
for
shit
that very
in the
reason,
news.
actually, yes. And I feel whack saying silly season, by the way.
Yeah.
So you definitely know it was something silly season.
So do I. When I came in here to Formula One, I was like, silly
Can we
season?
say
We got to work on that, guys.
anything silly season? You know how
British people, no offense to the British people listening to this, but y'all come up with some of the craziest combinations of words ever. And like, I'm supposed to take
it's
this serious? Like,
silly.
they act like Formula One is so
It's like
serious and they say shit like silly
okay,
season.
yeah,
Like,
sure.
be for
Yeah.
real.
So I'm definitely looking forward to silly. So maybe Carlos Sainz will finally make a decision. Shouts out to him, by the way, for his little
Yeah.
interview he did where he's like, if I was gonna be replaced, I understand why it was Lewis Hamilton, and it was better to be. I was like, okay, Carlos, you
Yeah.
kind of ate with that a little bit.
It's very big of
So
him.
that is it for the Monoplaza F1 podcast. As always, if you're watching, comment, like, subscribe. Don't forget to tell your mommies, your papis, your tios, your tias, abuelos, abuelas for the Monoplaza F1 podcast. This has been Emmy Beltre with Tasha James. Peace.